Good evening, Panther fans and fans of the CarolinaCatChronicles.com. It is your boy, the Freak'n Puerto Rican, Joe Riolano. I'm here on a Friday night. Not anything we do normally at all. Usually my Friday nights are spent at home on the couch. But tonight's a little different. I have a special guest with me to talk about this Sunday's upcoming game versus the Houston Texans, Mr. Randy Gurzy.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks a lot for having me, Joe.
Hey man, it's a real pleasure. If people want to reach you on Twitter, what's your Twitter handle?
It's at rgurzy81. They can also get me at Texans_TT, which is for the Texans Toro Time page.
That's right. That's over at Fansided. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right. Part of the Fansided network.
All right. Well, it's a real pleasure having you. I'm looking forward to this game because it's going to be a real test for the Panthers. It's going to be a test for the offensive line, which didn't look great against Jacksonville. Jacksonville had some injuries up front on the D-line, and the Panthers just didn't look impressive. The run game was abysmal. Pass protection was okay. There were a couple times some of the guys got beat, but that's going to happen. Cam did make some really nice runs. He's super elusive for being as big as he is, and that's part of his game. Coming into this, actually, let me step back and ask you about last week. I watched Hard Knocks this season. Okay, I was not surprised that Hoyer was given the job. Okay, I liked his game all around versus Mallett's. What shocked me was how quick he was to get the hook.
Yeah. The thing that I wasn't as enamored with Hoyer's skill set or anything like that. I was a lot more pro Mallett. I just didn't feel like Hoyer was much of an upgrade over Ryan Fitzpatrick. I just felt like if you weren't going to give Mallett the job, just could have stayed pat. But watching Hard Knocks, it's almost, they really portrayed Hoyer to be more of a leader, and Mallett just kind of came off as aloof and kind of just like he didn't know what was going on anywhere near as much. So I started to kind of think, yeah, maybe Hoyer could work out, but that the offense just didn't gel with him. And I think it's probably going to be the right move to go with Mallett. For a couple of reasons, but I did kind of agree that it was a little weird, especially in Hard Knocks. He told them you're not on a short leash, but I don't know. Quarters was a long leash, but
yeah.
But for me, the reason I think the Mallett is the better choice is you kind of know what Hoyer is. He's never going to light it up. He's he holds on to the ball too long. He makes some poor decisions. First pass of the game, it went right to the wrong team. It was complete miscommunication. With Mallett, you got a good defense and a strong run game, and that they're the kind of team that all you really need is for him to just hit that long bomb a couple times, and it could change the course of the game. So I think he just kind of gives them that a little bit of firepower and offense that they've lacked for years.
He does have an arm. There's no doubt about that. He has a cannon for an arm. He's got the size. I question his pocket presence,
right,
and his elusiveness. I don't think he's very mobile, and that's the one dimension that Hoyer had.
And that could play this weekend because Dwayne Brown may be out at left tackle, so that could really hurt them with Mallett. Because you're right, he's not anywhere near as mobile.
Right, and that is where I think one area where the Panthers will have an edge, and Mallett has the arm, but that elusiveness is something he lacks. But my question is more the perception of the coach in the eyes of the team, as far as his decisiveness.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "I'm going to go with Hoyer. He's not going to be on a short leash."
Right.
And then he turns around and yanks him. How does that affect the team, you think?
I think Bill O'Brien he's made a lot of really good moves, but I could see that kind of bringing some questions into people's minds. I had written something a while ago that, if we do see Bill O'Brien start to fall, it's going to be because the affection he has towards Brian Hoyer. I just felt like I don't think it was ever a true quarterback competition. Hoyer came in, would throw 4 passes, and he'd sit down. Hoyer would come in, throw 3 passes, and sit down. He hardly played in the preseason, and to me, that's not a quarterback competition. That's making sure your starter didn't get hurt. So I don't think it was ever really a fair shake to begin with. So, which makes it even weirder that he pulled him so fast. But yeah, I can see that being something that that kind of makes the players a little bit weary.
Yeah, that's something that I think the players are going to look at and go, wow, if he's so quick to, the quarterback's a pretty important position on the offense.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's so quick to make a move like that with the quarterback, if you're, a second string defensive end, your concerns are, if I make one mistake, am I, demoted to special teams only, that kind of thing. I like Bill O'Brien. I like his attitude. He seems like a player's coach.
Yeah.
He really does. But that move just made me, wonder what's his motive really. How much?
If you look at what he's done since coming there, though, I mean, I understand. Like I said, it did shock me a little bit. But if we take a step back and look, I mean, DJ Swearinger was a second-round pick in 2013, and he was cut in the offseason. And Lewis Nix was a third-round pick last season, never even played a down, and he's been cut. So, short leashes are kind of O'Brien's thing. So it kind of really him saying that he was going to put Hoyer on a short leash is the thing that probably should be more shocking because he doesn't really seem to have that with anybody.
Right, and Swearinger I saw play a lot here in South Carolina. Yeah, and I thought he was picked too high, and I wasn't at all surprised that they let him go. Didn't Nix play at Notre Dame?
Yeah, he's the nose tackle from Notre Dame. Yeah. He kind of fell in the draft and never really got healthy.
Okay. How much? Let me ask you this: if you would have had Arian Foster, would that have helped Hoyer to maybe stay in the game, or lengthen the leash, if you will?
I think it could have. A lot of the fans have been pretty high on Alfred Blue. I'm not 100% sold on him. I think he can be okay in spurts. But as you saw in that game, I think he had 9 carries and Jonathan Grimes had like 5 and Polk got a couple. They had to do more of a kind of a committee approach with Blue. Mm-hmm. Whereas if Foster's there, you're gonna pound the ball with him the whole time. And that first play is probably not going to be a pass play. The first play throws to Marcus Peters is probably going to be, a couple handoffs to Foster to get the ball moving. So I think that it could have been different. I still think Kansas City. People probably won't believe me right now after they gave away the game last night. But I still think they're a very good team. So, I think that the Texans, though, they did a good job coming out in the second half and, getting some stuff to build on moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Chiefs are a pretty good team and that the Texans made up some ground in that second half.
Right.
Foster, when do you have any idea when Foster will be back?
Well, he did return to practice this week. He got into the team drills on Thursday, but he's not coming back this week. Reports were that, anytime between weeks 2 and 4, they could see him back on the field. So there's no definite word yet, but it was definitely encouraging that he was able to get in some practice on Thursday.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Even if it's a limited role, there's progress being made there.
Exactly. Especially when the original prognosis was he was going to be on the short-term IR and not come back till, halfway through the season.
Wow. So, yeah, the sooner you get him in, the better I think it'll be for your offense. It gives a whole nother dimension. You guys averaged 4.7 yards a carry last week, which is great, but I think it was for a total of like 96 yards.
Yeah, they had to abandon the run.
Sure.
Which, just goes against what they want to do, and you see why that's what they want to do. Because even like I said, I'm not 100% sold on Alfred Blue, but with their offensive line and being able to use that committee they did, they get almost 5 yards of carry, and it was against a pretty good defense too. But
Yes.
After a couple turnovers, had the interception and then a fumble as well, which led to a touchdown. They had to abandon it, unfortunately.
And then at that point, when the other team's throwing, Kansas City's pass rushers can really pin their ears back and just go, balls to the wall, if you will.
Right, and that ended up being a problem. I think Hoyer got sacked 3 or 4 times. I think it was. So he pressure most of the night.
Yeah, their pass rushers are pretty legit too. If they know what's coming, they can really get after them.
Yep.
So I saw that DeAndre Hopkins had a pretty good game.
Yep.
And
pulled in 2 touchdowns and.
Yeah, that's a pretty good game. You guys have another guy on the other side. I was reading a little bit on your site today. Somebody named Grimes.
Grimes?
Yes.
Yeah, Jonathan Grimes. He's the backup running back.
Oh, I thought it was a receiver.
No, Grimes is he is the running back that comes in kind of to spell blue. He also plays a lot on special teams.
Okay.
The other receivers are Cecil Shorts from the Jaguars, who, last year, and then Nate Washington, who won the Super Bowl with Pittsburgh and spent some time with Tennessee as well.
Okay. Okay.
He's
so
the one.
Are the other guys.
Yeah, and Washington got 100. I think it was 105 yards last week against Kansas City. So he did pretty good in his debut with the Texans.
Yeah, that is pretty good. And they have some good secondary players back there, so that is pretty good. The tight end is a big question mark for you guys, isn't that right?
Yeah, you got C.J. Fedorowicz, who's 3rd-round pick from last year. He got 1 pass in this last game, and Ryan Griffin caught 1 pass, but has been put on IR. Sprained knee that he suffered on the play, and then Garrett Graham is one who he had 50. I think it was 54 catches in 2013, and then last year he only got 18. And I don't really know where the drop off came there. He's still a young guy and all, but that was an area that I thought they should have addressed in the draft. Should have at least tried. And what they ended up doing is just bringing in a couple undrafted kids. Neither one of them one of them went to injured reserve, and the other one didn't stick with the team. So that's definitely a sore spot for them. I know they used J.J. Watt there last year. He caught more touchdowns than any of the real tight ends. So it'd be nice to have somebody out there that could actually fill that role for them.
Right. Does this mean that J.J. Watt is your 3rd tight end on the roster?
He could probably do it. He said in a press conference that kind of smiled about it and said maybe, but I think they'll use him in the goal line. But I don't know. To me, I just kind of I'm not real big on using your best defensive player on offense.
Right, I got you. I totally understand your concern there.
Right, and I understand it would be much better if they had somebody who was a tight end that could fill that role, so he didn't have to.
Right. It's one thing if he's flanked out as a wide receiver, and another thing if he's in the trenches with bodies flying all over the place, and one
for lead balls and taking hits and
right, exactly. All right, well, let's switch sides and get to the defensive side of the ball, and this is I know you guys picked up Will Fork, who.
Yep.
Got to be in his maybe 11th or 12th year. Is that right?
Yeah, 12 years now.
Okay, and then you still have Brian Cushing, who I think is a phenomenal linebacker. Very intense from what I saw on Hard Knocks.
Yeah, he's missed a lot of time injured, but he's a beast when he's out there. He gets that whole defense going. So it was good to see him out there and play. And I think as he gets more comfortable with that knee, he's only going to get better.
And then, of course, everybody knows J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
He's just superhuman. When he came out of college, I would have not. I saw him play in Wisconsin, and he was just a man. You could see NFL written all over him.
Yeah.
And I would not have been upset at all if the Panthers would have been able to get him, for
Right.
sure. Um, so he is, does he kind of move around on the line? Is he like all over?
Yeah, they'll move him to both sides of the defensive end. Sometimes he'll move inside if they ever use a four-man rush for the nickel. But most of the time when they're in the 3-4 set, they'll put him on either side. Really, just kind of never let the offense know exactly where he's going to be, so they can't really game plan to try to stop them.
Right.
And they're able to do that because he and Jared Cook are both actually pretty versatile. They both, they're both very solid, and Crick is actually a very underrated defensive end who he's very good at stopping the run and still got about I think it was 4.5 sacks last season, which is pretty good from the defensive end spot, especially in a 3-4. Their defensive ends hardly ever get sacks.
Right. Right. You're right.
He's the only one that really seems to. But yeah, I think that defensive line, the three-man front it's very stout.
As a Panther fan, I have seen Mike Remmers, who we picked up last year, like literally off the street. I think he was on I want to say the Denver practice squad last year. Um, he's settled into the right tackle role very nicely. And we picked up Michael Ower this year from the blind side. To play left tackle, and he had a pretty good preseason. Last week he did pretty good. There was one time where he just got beat on a really good move by the defensive end. But other than that, he had an okay game. He's going to have his hands full with J.J. Watt, and I think he may not be able to handle him. Actually, I believe the Panthers may have to help him, either tight end or bring a running back over. But yeah, that's my main concern is the edge rushers on Houston getting to Cam Newton.
Yeah, and then the problem with that, what you're saying, if they have to do that, if you got to bring a tight end over, I mean, really with Kelvin Benjamin out for the year, Greg Olsen is their top receiver, really.
Clearly.
Yeah, so if you're having to bring him over, then that's going to take the best route runner off the field for the Panthers. So, I mean, they could probably find ways to game plan around it. Cam Newton's mobile enough to get some rollouts going and kind of try to move around a little bit. So, yeah, I think that the Panthers could have their hands full, but like I said, Cam Newton's the kind of guy that you never know. He can always just escape it and make something happen.
I really hope we come out in a lot of too tight this game. I want to see a lot of two tight ends, and that'll kind of help us to be able to move Greg Olsen around and maybe get him more involved in the passing game.
Right.
So I'm hoping we'll see a lot of that. And another thing I want to see is an improvement in our run game, because it was just awful last week.
I was kind of thought they might should have a little bit more of a Cameron Artis Payne going. Just the young guy in there. Jonathan Stewart is, he was so good at Oregon, and he really is a talented runner. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe he popped up on the injury report again. So it's just, he's just had such bad luck with injuries that I thought they might try to get the younger guy out there some more.
Yeah, and they had him out there a few times, but when he was out there, he didn't get the ball.
Right.
And he is we saw him in the preseason, and he looks the part. He really does look the part. He's a little bit older. He's 25, but he definitely can be a NFL back. So maybe we'll see more of him this week. Maybe we'll see more of him. I hope so. And our receivers, God, last week's game could have been a blowout. Should have been a blowout. We left 14 points on the field, if not more. Ted Ginn, I like him as a punt returner, but when it comes to being a receiver, anything over 20 yards, it's just 50-50. whether or not he's going to haul it in.
Yeah, and it seemed like they really last year. I know Kelvin Benjamin was just, he was very impressive, and it seemed like they wanted to be able to put, a big group of receivers out there after drafting Devin Funchess in the second round. And I was really looking forward to seeing what they could do with that, because that was going to be a big receiving group right there
Right.
with him. But yeah, unfortunately, with Benjamin going down, I don't think they ever were wanting to rely on Ginn in that role.
No, not at all. He is a passable number two option, a really serviceable third option, but
Right.
in no way is he a primary receiver. He's not your number one, and neither is Corey Philly Brown. He's not. So Funches, I think they're trying to fast track him,
Mm-hmm.
and the Panthers did make a move for a receiver, Norwood from Seattle,
No.
and he has shown some potential. They're
Right.
just trying to familiarize him with the playbook, let him, learn the system. I expect he was inactive last week, actually, but I do expect to see him dressed this week, hopefully on the field some.
Yeah, they can definitely use it.
Yeah, we definitely need some size out there because those two guys,
Just really kind of take that step, and they struck lightning with Benjamin last year, so
they did.
be good for them if they can do it again.
Yeah, it really would be. I think defensively, we're getting started with Tulule back, so it's gonna be good. I don't think there was such a huge drop off. The Jags did run on the Panthers some. That T.J. Yeldon kid is the real deal.
Yeah, I liked him a lot coming out of Alabama there, and yeah, the Jaguars really they had a very good draft. I think they're going to put a lot of young guys out there. I mean, they struggled against the Panthers, but they could be building something there. And I really thought Yeldon was a great pick.
I agree. After seeing him play, the moves he was making some of our best tacklers look silly. I mean, really, just making them look silly. Have you ever been to a game in Jacksonville?
Uh, no, but I'm actually going on October 18th when the Texans play there. So I'll be.
That stadium is gorgeous.
Yeah, I've passed it. I've driven past it before, but this will be my first time going to it.
It is so nice.
Uh,
I was so impressed with that place. So impressed. We had a very good time there. So the linebackers were going to be without Kuechly. I'm almost positive. He's listed as doubtful. No, I don't think there's anyone in Panther Nation that wants him to play. We want to give him the extra week to get better. In his place, they're playing A.J. Klein from Iowa State, who's been on the roster probably for maybe 5 years now. Played some at outside linebacker, but he had one really good game, and then after that, he really looked out of place. But last week, when he came in for Luke and was in the middle of the field, he was everywhere making plays. So I really think they found his home right there in the middle of the field, and let Shaq and TD play on the outsides.
right.
He really did look good, and we didn't see much of Shaq, to tell you the truth. We were surprised. I think he was only in on like 25% of the defensive plays. And Rivera said it was based more on what the Jags were doing than what we were trying to do. So it was just a better matchup to have him off the field. But I'm hoping to see more of him this week because he's very talented and can really play.
Yeah, and to play both sides at Washington, he was a
Yeah,
very impressive athlete, and yeah, I'm interested to see how he looks too, kind of being the every down linebacker now. As
right,
opposed to in college playing both roles.
right. I want to ask you what your thoughts are on the Panthers secondary versus your receiving options.
Um, I think that the Texans are actually a lot deeper at receiver than people think. I know they get a lot of people saying, what are they going to do without Andre Johnson? But the fact is, with what they have now, they have some youth. They've got Cecil Shorts, who he can really just fly. And then you have, DeAndre Hopkins, who we talked about earlier, having the 9 catches and 2 touchdowns. And Nate Washington is really an underrated veteran receiver. He averages 16 yards a catch in his career. And I know when I mentioned him on the Cat Crave, saying that he's a guy to watch out for, he asked, well, what is he thinking? But he said he averages 16 yards a catch for his career. People kind of forget about him. He was on Pittsburgh with Plaxico Burress and
Hines Ward.
Yeah, and Hines Ward. That's right. I couldn't remember the name. And then he went to from there. He went to Tennessee, and they weren't really winning a lot, so people weren't paying a whole lot of attention. But it's just he's always kind of been under the radar. And
has he had off the field issues?
No. And he's very durable. He's 31 years old, and he's never missed a game.
Wow.
And then on top of that, the 2 rookies that they got, one of them they didn't even get in the game last week, which is Jalen Strong. He was inactive.
From Arizona State?
Right, my alma mater.
Oh, nice.
He, they moved up in the 3rd round to get him, and he's that big-bodied receiver, kind of like Andre Johnson was. But, they didn't even have him active last week. But the 5th-round pick, Keith Mumphrey, they had out there, and he caught a couple passes. And, he does the punt returning and everything for him. So they're deep and they're young at receiver. So I think they'll – but, Carolina's very stout on defense. As you saw Norman try to take over the game last week. And I think, though, that if Houston wants to get some deep passes, what they're going to have to do is really work on the run game.
Right, I agree.
They can't get behind like they did last week, but if they can get the run game going strong and try to get Carolina trying to cheat on the run, get a couple play actions, if they can get behind the defense at all, Malik can hit it. But I think it'll be a good matchup. I think that's really going to be what decides the game is those receivers against that secondary.
Yeah, Josh Norman was player of the game in our esteemed opinion. 5 tackles, a forced fumble recovery, interception with a return for a touchdown. He had quite a good game. And let me be honest and tell you that the Jags were kind of picking on him at the beginning of the game. I think in the first half, he had the receiver he was covering had 7 targets. So they were really trying to make him, earn his money, so to speak.
He did.
Yeah, I agree. He did. And that's when they started working away from him. So I really think Norman is getting ready to become one of the premier cornerbacks in the NFL. Bené Benwickery is talented. He's more of a real nickel versus the outside guy. But Peanut Tillman has come in and made a real difference as far as somewhat on the field, but where his biggest difference, his value lies in the locker room. Yeah. Really great locker room guy. And then Kurt Coleman came over from, I think it was Chiefs is who he was with last. But he also played with Philly for a little while. He came in and won the starting free safety job. And then we have old man Harper back there, who, is good and sound against the run, but he's something of a liability in pass coverage, and that's something that concerns me when you're talking about, DeAndre Hopkins, because he's a burner, man.
Yeah.
He's got some real speed. So I guess after all this, what do your special teams look like?
Houston special teams it's quite frankly a mess. We got the kicker who missed the first 33-yard extra point. And Randy Bullock had a good year kicking last year, but the year before he was just very erratic. So, hopefully he's not going back to that. Shane Leckler, who's one of the best punters of all time, kind of struggled a little bit, but really where their problem is last year they surrendered almost twice as much yards per average on punt returns than what they were able to get. Punt returns were bad, kick returns were bad, and the coverage teams everybody was getting winning the field position battle all day. So it's something that was not good at all last year. I think that bringing in a lot of young guys, they're hoping, like somebody like Keith Mumphrey, who they picked in the 5th round. He was somebody that they envisioned as being kind of that gunner on the punt teams, and he's ended up also winning the punt returning job. But and they've actually just brought up a kid off the practice squad, Chandler Worthy, who was undrafted out of Troy. He ran a 4.34 40-yard dash. So
that's smoking.
Yeah, he's really quick, and they worked him on kick returns a lot in preseason. So I think that they looking for a spark back there, and
Right.
as far as the coverage teams, that's somewhere they can get burnt.
Right, and the Panthers, who were horrible punting and punt returns last season, we were just awful. We lost that Minnesota game because they blocked like 3 punts and ran them back for touchdowns.
I remember that.
It was awful. But this year, by re-signing Ginn, they really have a weapon. He's a real threat back there. Every time he fields a punt, he can take it to the house. And we've already seen, just in the Jacksonville game, I want to say he had like a 42-yard return, something like that, where it flipped the field to our advantage. So that may be an area where we can claim a few victories this week. We've improved there.
Yeah, Houston's going to have to be on their game with him.
Yeah, definitely, because he is dangerous. I guess I will ask you one last question and see what your thoughts are. What do you think this game is going to boil down to, and could I get your prediction, please?
I did on my on website, the Toro Times, I predicted the Texans to win by a score of 27-13, and the reason I said that is just simply Carolina struggled last week, as you'd mentioned, to get the run game going. I think overall it was like 236 or 200. It was under 300 yards total. I know Cam Newton had like 175 passing.
That's right.
I just feel like if Houston can avoid the mistakes and let their running game get going, that their defense can slow down Carolina, and I think maybe they can just find a couple holes with Mallett and find a couple deep passes off play action, and that's just my gut feeling is they're going to pull this one out.
Right, I know they have extra motivation because of last week. They had a poor performance in that first half.
They did, yeah.
But then they did look improved in the second half, so I know they want to.
Kansas City do 3 out of 13 on third downs, which is going to be key against Carolina because Carolina likes to run the ball, and the big plays are going to be those third downs where Newton has to connect. And I just think that the Houston defense could win those battles.
Last week the Panthers defense didn't look great in the first half. They were okay, but they didn't look great. In the second half, they held the Jags offense to 75 yards and 1 first down, and it was late in the fourth quarter when they got that. So they showed up, and I expect that same defense to be ready this week. Offensively, we know what we have to do. The biggest thing, I think, is we got to protect Cam. I think at the same time, we do have to incorporate him into our running game some.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
He's going to have to. I know a lot of times, if you listen to different media outlets, they talk about guys who try to play hero ball, and they make mistakes. But it's almost like Cam has to do that this year because the supporting cast around him on offense just isn't what he needs it to be. So he's not going to have a lot of help, unfortunately.
Right. That is something he has done in the past, and we've had some good results and some not so good results when he does that sort of.
The linebackers and safeties creep up to try to stop him. That's when somebody like Ginn could get deep, and he may not be a true number one, but he only needs to get deep a couple times. And
that's it.
Worried about Cam taking off running, it could happen.
That's it. That's very true. I see this game. I think it's going to be almost like a race to 20. The first team that scores 20 points, I think, has a good chance at winning this game.
Yeah, I can see it being pretty low scoring too. That's probably pretty accurate.
So I'm going to go Panthers. No surprise there for anyone that knows me and my picks. I'm going to go Panthers. I'm going to say Carolina 23 and the Texans 13. I
All
think
right.
it'll be something like that. Well, I tell you what, Randy, if it's possible, I'd like to have you on Tuesday night to our normal show, just so we can kind of uh, go over the game
Okay.
briefly and see which one of us was closer to being right in our predictions.
All right. I can
Um, yeah, great. We'll have you on like in the first 15 minutes or so of the show, and just like I said, kind of review what was going on. I'll email you though, and set something solid up. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
It was a real pleasure having you on, man. It was great to meet you, and I definitely enjoyed the conversation. Again, tell them where they can reach you out on Twitter and where you're currently working right now.
All right. Yeah, you guys can check me out and my staff over there at torotimes.com. We cover all things Houston Texans football, and you can catch me at rgurzy81 on Twitter, as well as Texans_TT. And Joe, thanks a lot. It was great meeting you as well, and I really did enjoy it.
All right, great. Well, hopefully we'll see you on Tuesday and get to go over what happened over the weekend. This is Joe Riorano, aka the Freak'n Puerto Rican. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Riolano, and we will do this again next Friday with the Saints coming into town on Sunday. So that's going to be a big division game for us. Thank you for watching, everyone. Good night, San Diego.